Welcome back to the Nassman Hockey Podcast. John Zella, James Nichols back with you. So James, I was drumming on the desk before while you were getting ready, and you had asked me what it was, and I'm preparing for the release of the new Blink-182 record. Is that a band that you, and we may have talked about this before? Is that as a fellow drummer, is that an influence for you when you were playing in
Of
bands and
course.
stuff?
Yeah, of course. I mean, everybody wanted to be Travis Barker, especially those who play drums that are our age. So,
Right.
um, I always did my best to do whatever Travis Barker did. But I think I've told you this before, and I don't know if I've ever said it on the podcast. But I'm not like a trained drummer. Like I'm all by ear. Like ask me to read sheet music, it's not going to happen. Can't do
Same.
that for the life of me. But I just listen and I play. And it's funny because like I'll watch YouTube videos and be like, oh yeah, I do know how to play this song. I'm playing it correct. I just started trying to do it by sound and then translate it to my own kit. But yeah, Travis Barker is definitely one of those guys who I replicated my drumming after for sure.
Yeah, I'm the same way, self-taught, uh, by ear, all of that. Definitely tried to emulate him. I never really had the chops necessarily, uh, but it was always cool to, when you could play one of the songs or something like that. It was very fun. There's
Yeah.
also an app. I don't know if you know this. This is going to be uninteresting for anybody who's not a drummer. Um, but there's this thing called Drumeo where it teaches you the song, and then they have versions of the song with and without the drums so that you could play along to just the rest of the song without the drums, or you can play along with it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Kids these
You
days,
get
they have it easy.
They have it easy. They don't have to download something off of LimeWire that may or may not have been the song on dial up, and then burn it to a CD. And yeah, what a what a time. But the new Blink record is coming. There are bits and pieces of it that have come out. Before we start the show, I think this is important. Top three Blink records, including
Oh,
EPs, if you'd like,
oh man, that's
in no particular order.
all right. Well, definitely. I mean, obviously, Enema of the State, right? Because that was like the one that like put them on the map. Um, or no, yeah, that was the one that like put them on the map.
I mean, you could like
And
whichever
then
ones you want. You don't have to do it by whether or not they were popular. I'm not saying what you think the
well, no,
best
no,
ones are, like your favorite ones.
yeah, yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, like for me, that like the way I think of the timeline is that's the one that put them on the map. Although Dude Ranch was also pretty popular. Um, So that one's up there too. And then take off your pants and jacket. Like I feel like those are the three, right? Those are the ones that everybody's like, yeah, those are the records.
I really like the self-titled one, the 2003 release. That
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
that one was really good. It was, I thought, a very mature step in a good direction. 12-year-old John really appreciated that album. Um, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket for sure. I like Enema. I think that's a honorable mention. It maybe should be higher. I really like, to go something much newer, although it's not very new anymore. They had an EP called Dogs Eating Dogs, and it was very good. That's what I was listening to before. Um,
Yeah.
it was a short EP. It came out after Neighborhoods, which is also good. Um, those might be my 3A, 3B picks, Enema and that EP. I think were really good. Again, I don't mind the silly stuff. But I'd like to see progression with them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
this new album seems all over the place, um, as it should be because they haven't played music together in 10 years. So, um, not what I expected, but everyone's just excited, which I think is good.
Yeah, this new I actually haven't gotten a chance to like sit down and really listen to it, but from what I've heard so far, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it definitely, so far, out of the 5 songs, 4 or 5, um, they definitely have their moments where it's really good. I think it's just going to be it's really long. I think it's 16, 17 songs. So
Well,
it's
it's been a
definitely going
while.
to have things where there's good reactions from older fans and newer fans that maybe just like them over the last 4 or 5 years with that Skiba, and they don't really know the old Blink. I think it'll have a little bit for everybody, which is cool. Um, but yeah, looking forward to it. A little bit of nostalgia mixed in, never hurt. Um, to the ice, we have hockey games to discuss for a change that mean
Yeah,
something. Um, the Islanders have won their first 2 games of the season. They're 2-0. Um, before getting into some of the specifics, although this may just digress, and that's completely fine. Um, what are your overall thoughts from the first 2 games? Anything that stood out that we should be concerned about? Um, what did you like from those first 2 games? Knowing, of course, that there's not a whole lot that we can get. Um, but you hope, all right, let's identify some trends, good and bad, and see what changes going forward.
yeah. So good question. I was thinking about this earlier today because I had a feeling the question was coming up. Um, I know you so well, but you know, I think there were two very different games. I look at the first game and I think a lot of the off season was talking about how could the Islanders not make any upgrades? How could they not add yada yada? There's no depth scoring. They need a forward. They come out in game one and score 3 goals. Brock Nelson looked great. Kyle Palmieri looked really good. Casey Zizekas in the fourth line get the game winner, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, the Islanders are old are back, right? And it's overreaction season, so everyone's gonna overreact quickly. They're doing it in New Jersey with Timo Meyer. Like it's that time of year. Um, but I thought it was a statement for them to come out and with all the question of like, how could they not have added any scoring? They need not only primary scoring depth but secondary scoring depth. And maybe that secondary scoring depth comes within if they add some primary, but they didn't. So what is this? And um, then game two, I although I don't think that Arizona is a bottom feeder this year. I think they're going to be sneaky good, a pesky, scrappy team. They only put up 1 goal. Now, Karel Vizmelka, to his credit, excellent goaltender. I think he's underrated. I don't think he's talked about enough because of probably where he plays, but he's a legitimate goaltender. And just checking Money Puck right now, he made 1.49, so almost 1.5 goals saved above expected, which is pretty good. Um, the Islanders put up like 34 shots. They were expected to score 2.8 something goals, almost 3 goals that game. They only scored one. Um, so credit to Vizmelka, but at the same time, you begin to wonder, okay, is this now we have literally two different, completely different samples. One where they score 3 goals to get the win. Another where they relied on maybe not too heavily Sorokin to get a shutout because it was only 14 shots, but um, you know, Barzell scores the only goal on the power play, which is another plus. But you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, 3 goals in one game, 1 goal in another, averaging two. The Islanders are going to need to score more goals than two on average per game.
Go back to you made a comment about really the second line getting going. I believe Palmieri and Nelson got goals, and then Suzikas got the game winner against Buffalo. I think really the way that I see it anyway is that good teams. It's not there's primary and secondary scoring. I don't think there's any disagreement there. But when you're talking about the first 2 lines, they're the ones that can alternate. So I don't mind that the second line drove the scoring in the first game. The first line gets one that turns out to be the only one in game two. I don't mind that. I don't think very rarely are they both going to be on. But the problem in the past with the Islanders is that when they've needed somebody to kind of step up, and maybe this is your point, in these tighter games, it's been harder to find it. Only one line is going at a time. And that's probably fun on most nights, but you do need both of them to click together when you're playing who I don't know what the Boston Bruins are doing this season, but really good teams. You're playing a Vegas Golden Knights, you're playing a Boston Bruins, you're playing whatever the case is, the Carolina Hurricanes. You need somebody else to step up. I don't mind if it's one at a time occasionally. I think that's a normal cadence, but they need to gel together. They all need to be able to find it on a single night against good teams. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I could understand that. The other thing too is, and I'm just thinking about this now. Um, looking back at who they played the Buffalo Sabres and they played the Arizona Coyotes. The Buffalo Sabres are, they were exciting last year. Everybody was watching the Buffalo Sabres because they were putting on a show. And I feel like there's a little bit of that in the Coyotes this year. They got Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller's still there. They bring in Matt Dumba. They have Sean Dursey now, and again, Bishmelk is a really good goaltender. I feel like there's a little bit of that going on in Arizona too. So for the Islanders to kind of say, "Hey, kids, we still are, the top dogs around here," that was a pretty big statement for them. I got to give them that credit. I didn't think of that until this very moment. Um,
I agree with
but I think
that.
there's
I
something to
thought
that.
they
Yeah.
were I thought they were trap games. I know it's early in the season. There's really nothing going on. They had a long time between. They played Saturday night and then Tuesday night. So there was it's not there. They haven't picked up that regular cadence yet, which maybe have something to do with, lag and scoring. They really do just have to get in game shape. But I thought they were trap games against. I think that it was something that I did want to mention. So happy you brought it up early. Um, these kind of younger, exciting teams or up and coming teams. Um, and the Islanders aren't just a team full of veteran players. This is a team that has played together a very long time. We've talked about turnover, and that's important, but so many of them have been there for a very long time. And when players come in, they're fitting into a culture, and it's really important that they came out and just won those games. They have to be able to play these teams that have not been together, that are up and coming, that have
Yeah.
something to prove. And exactly to your point, the Islanders kind of get to walk away saying, "We're the top dogs. We know what we're doing. Um, this is just another day in the office." So
Right.
I think that they could have very easily we could have been recording this episode down 0-2 and saying, "Yeah, it was just a bunch of young teams coming out. They had something to prove against." It's like it's almost like a win-win for
Right.
the Islanders. It's 2 games in the season. They could have lost the games 4-2 or like or whatever, right? Oh, this is clicking. This isn't working. We could pretty much have the same episode, but it is nice to bank those points ahead of
Yeah, yeah.
time.
It's abundantly clear that this is the better side of the grass to be on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and just watching the game, it's like again, having starting this conversation from a 30,000 foot view, it definitely looked messy in a lot of parts, especially against the Sabers. Um, and I was bartending at the time, so I wasn't able to watch with my full attention. But with the pieces that I had a chance to pay attention to a little more fully, it did seem really messy. It seemed like it was kind of a lot. It was not barn burner. There wasn't a lot of goals, but I think the Islanders were up 2-0. Am I? And then Buffalo came back, and then
Yep.
so that's one of those things where like that can't happen. That needs to be a 3-1 game with an empty net instead of
Yeah.
a 3-2 game. Now they pulled it off, and they've kind of consistently done that going back to last season. They found ways, not like they did a few years ago, where I was never really worried about it. Um, but they do find ways to win. That's a veteran team.
Yeah, I'll say this about the first game. They go up 2-0 in the first period. The second period, I believe it was Jordan Greenway scores to pull them within one, and then very early in the third period, They score again, Casey Middlestat, and you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, you know, here we go, like the classic Islanders folding late in the game." However, to their credit, they put the foot on the gas, and instead of playing on their heels, they took it to the Sabres, and eventually halfway through that third period, it worked out in their favor, and Cizikas in the fourth line scored that goal. So, I was pleasantly surprised to see them take control of the game late in the third period rather than play on their heels and try not to make a mistake rather than just play the game.
We already touched on some of the goal scoring. Do you think there's going to be an uptick? We're predicting a little bit, and we're kind of just really speculating on what could be going on here. Do you think it's the same old Isles, and it's going to take, I don't know, scraping and clawing all season long, or do you see some chemistry building, and eventually it's going to go in?
I think there's definitely going to be an uptick in production here. Just taking a look at the shots between the two games, Bo Horvat in that first game had 8 shots on net. He's a volume shooter. That's just what he's gonna do. He's gonna take a lot of shots. They're not all gonna go in, but that's what he does. Barzell had 3 shots in the first game. He's shooting a lot more. Paul Mary was back to his usual ways, shooting 4 on net. And then the following game, you had Sebastian Aho stepped up for an injured Scott Mayfield. 5 shots. He looked really good in that game. Noah Dobson, another 5 shots. He's a volume shooter from the blue line. Nelson doing his thing, shooting 4 pucks. Barzell shot 4 pucks. Like I do see a path here for an uptick in production, and I think it definitely starts with that first line with Barzell and Horvat. Those two guys. It looks like Barzell's got this shoot first mentality for sure this year. I texted you yesterday after he scored. I said Alexander Barzal as a joke because he he scored that goal from Ovechkin's office on the power play. Now it was a floater over the goaltender's shoulder, but yeah, it uh, definitely looks like there is a path here for them to score more and to put more shots on net.
I think some of that too, and let's concentrate on the first line. And I do want to go through kind of all the lines in the defense and dissect a little bit more. I think some of the path forward for that first line might just come from Holmstrom shooting as well, because
You know,
there was a go ahead. I'll follow up in a second.
Well, he looked really good, and like you look at some of the nerd stats here, he's at the top of the charts for game score and the expected goals and the Corsi and everything. And I think even you and I had the conversation of like, okay, we're just sticking anybody on this first line, seeing what sticks, and it kind of looks like Lambert threw this one at the wall and it stuck. He's looked
Barzell had a
really
lot of
good.
good things to say about him.
Yeah, a
Going
lot
at
of a
puck
lot of people have.
protection and well, it's nice. I mean, he's not going to say that the guy stinks, right? But it is nice to
No.
kind of see, even if he wasn't playing well, he's just like, oh, he's really, giving it 110% out there. But he was, it seemed very genuine, like his puck protection, his ability to kind of see the ice and all of that kind of stuff. What I will say is I'm seeing a lot of very on the good side of with Holmstrom. I'm seeing some confidence building with the passing. He is able to kind of find these open areas. It seems like he's very comfortable with them. His IQ can keep up with Horvat and Barzell, and I think that's really important. He's able to kind of make these very short, good passes. On the other side of that coin, though, he's clearly thinking pass first. So there was a GIF from Isles Fix against Buffalo, and it is Holmstrom just down the LIE, right headed right for the goalie.
Right.
And Barzell's kind of off to the side. And I think it was a clever play, but it was in real tight by this point. So I like the idea. I like that the chemistry is there, that they feel that they can do this. But Holmstrom gives the puck to the outside to Barzell, who doesn't really have a good angle. and does get the goalie moving. I think it's really important. This is I think a really shifty, crafty line, and you're going to see a lot of empty net goals for that line because they're able to kind of move that puck and move around the ice. You're going to see a lot of tap-ins. Barzal can also snipe, and Horvat can too, but I think they're going to be able to pass so well. You're going to just see them kind of lay up goals here. But in this situation, that couldn't happen. Barzal's way to the outside. He's a righty. Puck's near the boards. Doesn't really have an angle. He looks immediately to and tries to cross the puck to, I believe it's Horvat. I couldn't get a number there. I would have liked to just all that's to say, I would have loved to see Holmstrom just shoot that puck, even to get a rebound. Like strategic, if you're not going to shoot to score, which from that, right in the middle hash marks there, I just do something, but get the puck to the net and either shoot for a rebound or whatever, and go from there. You just have to hit the net. Like that's all anybody's asking. To try to set that play up and not kind of look to your left and see, okay, that guy's covered. Even if I get it to Barzal, there's no way to get it over to someone that's crashing the net. It's just not going to work. And that's exactly what happened. Tied up, couldn't really get the pass off. I had maybe the goalie got a piece of it with his pad. I can't remember. So that's my Holmstrom has looked really good on the passing. And even that pass is really good. Real short, right to Barzal's tape is like 3.5 foot pass. But those are important. I just like to see him shoot. Like I want that confidence on the passing side of the game to be, that killer instinct. I want him to also build that confidence in shooting the puck.
Yeah, he definitely isn't, a shoot first mentality. He's only got one shot through 2 games. But you're right. Whether it's that strategic shooting or shooting to score. I mean, listen, we saw last year he scored a couple goals where even you and I said to each other like, "Holy shit, this guy's got a shot!" Like that was a howitzer. Like he's underrated in the shooting department, I would say. So, as if he had a little more confidence to do that and get pucks on net. Listen, I'm not saying he's a first line player, but the Islanders might be cooking up something with Holmstrom on the first line.
Yeah, I don't. It may have been a little. Here's, Lamrell just says, "Here's what we have," and Wallstrom isn't a fit on the left wing there. They really don't. They want to use Lee as a last resort kind of deal. To kind of, as you said earlier, provide a little bit more depth and beef up that third line with some scoring. And I guess a little bit more of a threat. You have two guys that are just going to get that puck to the net, and you have Lee cleaning it up. I don't think that's a bad strategy.
No.
And you have a guy that is really skilled and maybe could just benefit as much as I'm hesitant to throw a young guy that he's played, I think, under 100 NHL games. So I'm hesitant to throw somebody on that line. It just proven
52.
not to 52. Yeah, I mean and that's part, over a few 2 seasons, right? So he played last year 9 points in 50 games. That's tough. We did see some good things. He didn't exactly light up the AHL either, but it's good. You're clearly seeing something there. They're able to kind of move the puck, so I that could be something. I don't think all is lost here. In other words, on Barzal for a second, anything specific that you've seen from other than shooting? He's on the wing. We're obviously getting a little bit different perspective from him. What have you noticed from his game just on that shift to the wing alone?
Dude, it's like I said to you when he cut his hair, it was like he's officially assumed that title, Tank Barzal, and now it's you're seeing it on the ice. Like, dude's aggressive. He's winning puck battles along the boards. He's playing hard, and he was a puck possession monster before. I think he's doing it even more now. You're really seeing him, and it's funny. He actually, I don't think we mentioned this. He switched from the right wing to the left wing. It was his preference, and Lambert said, "Yeah, go for it." Which puts Holmstrom on his natural wing now. He's a right winger. So, you're seeing him more comfortable. You're seeing him with less responsibility as a center. You're seeing him just being able to focus on his strengths. And I think that's just resulting in overall a better player. I've been saying it for years. I know Barzell has the skill to be amongst the elite players in this league. It was just a matter of being able to one find a line mate to help free things up, and two, finding that confidence to do it. And I think you're starting to see that so far this year. Again, it's just 2 games, overreaction season, whatever you want to say. But he looks really good, really strong. I'm confident that this could be his best season yet.
I think there's an opportunity there for sure for him to have not a breakout season, but breaking out of the shell that he's kind of been in the last few years. We know what he's capable of,
It's interesting for us to have to sit here and say, if only he could be the way he was as a rookie, you know?
Yeah, I think there. I don't remember if he was a winger then.
I think he was playing center, maybe a few stints on the wing, but I think mostly center.
I can't remember. I don't know where the room would have been because Nelson was there, Tavares was there. I don't remember who the third line center was at that.
Might have
This
been
is
him for a little bit,
I don't know. I think he was playing in the top six. No, who would have been the third?
potentially.
When did he come in? 17, 18?
Uh, I always wonder if there's a website out there that tracks, deployment the way they do. 2017-18 was his rookie season. Yeah.
So 2017-18 Islanders would be pretty easy to tell who the third line center was. I for whatever reason I'm super blanking on who that would have been. Oh God, Shane Prince is on that team. Wow, we're gonna dive deep here for a second. Wow, it is not clear at all. Could Alan Quine, Shane Prince? Yeah, I thought he played the wing too.
That's what I'm saying.
Um,
It very easily could have been Brock Nelson as the third line center then. Was that the kid line? Was Strom around, right? Strom, Nelson, Lee?
God, Kuhlman was around. Was
Seems like
Strom on
that's
that?
what it is.
Strom was not on the team at that point.
Oh, he was already. Eberle was there. He was already traded for Eberle.
Yeah, the Hockey Reference has Josh Bailey listed as a center, but
That's what I'm saying. I think Barzell, regardless, I think it was Barzell, Tavares, and Nelson down the middle. Nelson might have been, even without Strom, that third line center. I don't think he had broken out to be the goal scorer he is now just yet at that time.
wow. All right, so I'm going back and looking. Barzell was the second line center. Nelson was the third line center
Yeah.
behind Barzell. That
See?
is crazy. God, I just want to read this lineup. Whether or not this was even true. This is looking back at Daily Faceoff from a few years ago. Lee, Tavares, Eberle, Ladd, Barzell, Bailey.
Oh my god, that was when they first signed Ladd, right? He was supposed to be like the next
Or was it the
wave of
season before? Maybe it was 16-17. I
scoring.
can't remember. But so then Bavillier, Nelson, Hosang. I do not understand how that can't be right.
Wow.
And then Kuhlman, Cizikas, Clutterbuck, because this is still when Martin had a cup of coffee over in the Great White North there. So
That's right.
wow, okay, that was a trip down memory lane. That seems like forever ago. That makes me uncomfortable. So Barzell on the wing. This is all because of one little thing, but Barzell on the wing, I think, is just opening him up a little bit more, and to kind of draw a comparison to Austin Matthews for a second, who's now, I believe, on the penalty kill. And there's players like Michael Grabner, and these really quick players that whether they're on their PK or they're on the wing, it just opens him up to strip defensemen and really take advantage of somebody when they flub the puck a little bit, or it pops over their stick, or they have bad footing or whatever. I saw it a few times against the Coyotes where he was just able to chip the puck around a defenseman and skate around them and nearly get a
Yeah.
breakaway, or really, really just take advantage of a defender that was in a bad position or something. And you're not able to do that at center. You're so much deeper in the zone. And I think the biggest thing, and God, there's so many podcasts. This is 100 episode 165 plus all sorts of other stuff that we've done post games and whatever. It's got to be close to actually, I don't know, 180 or something. Whatever the case is, all I've been saying is he needs to play more north south, and playing on the wing and getting that jump start on the blue line instead of at the hash marks or lower, where he does that big Gretzky curl, not or the bus turn behind the net, and he's trying to get speed. Instead, he's just his nose is forward. His nose is going into the offensive zone, in the neutral zone. That's so important for him to really get going and just be focused on the offense. Obviously, he's got to come down to the hash marks and kind of play that quadrant in his own zone. But it's not even the responsibility so much as the opportunity that it opens up. So I think we were talking about taking the responsibility away from him, and I think there's some truth to that. That's definitely partially right. But I think, I guess, to be more positive, it's more about the opportunity that it allows him. And again, stripping the puck from a defender, being able to spring forward for a breakaway and kind of not leave the zone too early, but leave the zone early. And I saw that against the Coyotes, and it's just abundantly clear that that's going to benefit him and the team in the long term. He's just he's 40% of the way up the ice. He's only got 60% left to go instead of 75 or 80%, and that can only lead to good things.
Natsman Hockey is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game this October. You know I'll be taking the bet that the Chargers beat the Cowboys at a plus 110 money line. So get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code THPN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources.
On to the second line, who was the real star of the show in game one and continued to be in game two. Stats by Zach, shout out. Doing a really great job. And, they're going to be the Islanders' analytic darlings. But it was clear in the stats, it was clear by the eye test that line continues to be really good. There's parts of me that doesn't always like what they're doing, and I think they're getting a little too cute. But I want to get your 2 cents on where that line is and how they've been able to continue what they put together last season.
Yeah, picking up where they left off. And it's funny because I would listen to a lot of people talk about, look, we know what Nelson's going to do. Nelson's going to score. It looked like he had 2 in game 1. Wound up going to Paul Mary. Regardless, he's creating that chance. Paul Mary, same thing. He's a volume shooter. He's going to shoot. He's going to grind goals. He gets 1 too, right? But I've been listening to what a lot of people have had to say about Pierre Engvall, especially after signing that contract long term. And, you know, they compare him back to what he was in Toronto. He was this tall guy who, big body, who you wanted to see more from, right? And, you know, when you really think about the circumstance that he was put in, he wasn't getting top 6 minutes in Toronto. And just because he's a big body doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to play that physical style of game. And he was put in a checking role. Whereas now he's with the Islanders, who have they have spots open in the top six if necessary. Just because nobody's really a staple outside of Horvat, Barzell, and Nelson, right? I guess you could put Lee in there, but nobody's really a staple in that top six. So Engvall comes over, and all of a sudden he doesn't have to be that checking forward anymore. He could do as he pleases, and what he's good at is distributing, playmaking. S- He's good on offense, and he didn't get that opportunity to show that because he wasn't going to trump a Matthews, a Marner, a William Nylander, a Tavares. Like none of that was happening in Toronto. So he comes here, and he fits in perfectly with the Islanders. And a lot of that has to do with one, yes, his skill is very good. He's a skill forward. But two, he has the speed that the Islanders were craving. And three, he's a high IQ player. He's really smart. And all of that wasn't on display before, and he just really rounds out a very good second line that the Islanders have now behind Horvat and Barzell, which is, again, another necessity that the Islanders are going to need to be successful is depth scoring. So,
Yeah, and he's ridiculously strong. And if
well,
he
right,
can use
that's
it, and that was the big knock on him in Toronto, was that he's so strong and just didn't always use it. And I think it's a really good point. He's not being asked to do that, and when he does, it's a little bit of a surprise. I saw it a couple times. For how big he is, sometimes he's a little too easy to knock off the puck. It's seen there were a couple times. I know it was late in a shift. There was one in the neutral zone where he got stripped pretty good. But yeah, overall, I've been that line as a whole. Um, there's a very natural connection. I think it's a lot like Horvat and Barzell, where you can clearly see how they're beginning to put plays together and what just feels really natural. You've played, there are certain players that you just jive with. You don't really need to talk about it. There's little things that you chat about on the bench, and but there's so much. And guys that I played with growing up, I can go skate with now, or I have in the past. It just feels very natural. You just kind of, whether it's the same style or whatever the case is, um, you can kind of just throw pucks, and the other player is just there because it's where you're supposed to be. It's kind of how you've done that. That second line plays like that. Um, there's really not anybody that one person that shoots is one person that, Nelson is the most successful goal scorer, but they all get pucks to the net. They have the same idea. Um, I think sometimes they're overpassing a little bit. I think that can be good. Again, like I said earlier, you have to get the goalie moving. I think it's a good idea. That can't be the game plan. You're just opening yourself up to get a pass broken up, the play kind of broken up or whatever. But um, they're all those top two lines are shooting. I think that's the big takeaway for me. And you mentioned it earlier. Um, the top two lines are shooting the puck more than we've seen before, and I th- I'm not. Are you worried about? Are you really worried about that contract with Engvall? There's a length of time thing, but are you really worried about it?
the way I see it is the cap is projected to go up to $87 million. That 3 million for 7 years is soon going to be equal to 1.5 now, and by year seven, might be pennies. At that point. So, I mean, even by year five, might be pennies. So it's not the greatest at this moment, but it's gonna progressively get better. And look, if he plays great, scores 20 goals and let's say 50 points this year, sign me up. Like good contract, I'm in. Right now, it doesn't look
100%.
great, but there's definitely window there for it to change. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely my thought. And percentage of the cap, it's going to go down. But something you've mentioned, he's probably going to get pushed down the lineup eventually.
Yeah,
He's not
that
going to
too.
be. He's not going to. You could talk about Lamoriello and how he may never retire and yada yada yada. But eventually, someone else will run the team, and likely during this Engvall contract, and younger players will come up, and that the fourth line, Cizikas might be around a bit longer. I know he's signed for a number of more years. Clutterbuck and Martin will not. Um, Lee, Engvall, and center, is a good third line in the future. Or as a, whatever. I think that's fine. Even Lee as a future fourth liner um, is cool with me. So those players eventually just getting pushed down the lineup as effective, just not as in your top six and getting a lot more minutes. There's so much opportunity for that to happen over 7 years, and you figure it out in that time. That if 50% or more of the contract that player is good, it's a win. You almost can't expect him to be good 100% of the time. If for 3 or 4 of those seasons he can score 15 to 20 goals at $3 million with the cap going up, absolutely. I'll repeat what you said. Sign me up. I'm here for that. If in years maybe 4, but definitely 5, 6, 7, he's not great. Okay, he gets Ross Johnson or whatever, and he's the 13th or 14th forward. What did you think of the third line?
I I think the third line is the right place for Lee. Pajot has been his usual self. Swiss Army knife, does a little bit of everything. And Fashing, I thought, had a really strong game the other night against the Coyotes. I thought he was really good out there. Nothing stands out, both positive and negative. I thought they've been status quo. You know, I I'd like to see them get on the score sheet. That's what I would like to see, and I think that's really all you could ask for. Lee's going to bang bodies. Peugeot's going to do the same. Fashing is the Cizikas light, so he's going to do that too, and that's great. They need that in the bottom six, but I would like to see them get on the score sheet for sure.
Yeah, Pajot and Lee, I can see adding that little boost to offense here and there. I think that's really, really important. Fashing, I want him to keep playing his game. I do not want him to be nearly as noticeable as last year. I don't mean that in a good or bad way. He just he's really just out there as a someone to bang bodies. He needs to just be guy. He was he was almost too good for the roster, and he stood out in such a good way against a backdrop of just inconsistent play. And on this team that when they're healthy seems really solid to me, he needs to be not noticeable. He needs to just go out there and do his job, dump the puck, get the pucks to the net, dig it out, and let Lee and Peugeot do their job. He just needs to be the workhorse on that line, in my opinion. I really like him. I think Cizikas Light is, I think he's a little bit more than on the light part of that. But I point taken. Um, he just can't be the best player on the ice every single game. He needs to keep doing his thing. But I didn't like how one of the outcomes of last season was okay. Engvall on that second line was good. Hudson Fashing is Jesus Christ. We got to do better than that. So I think what I'm trying to say is the rest of the team needs to catch up to how hard he works every single night. I'd like him to just be more noticeable because he's just doing his job and everyone else is also doing their job. Um, but I agree. I definitely see some more scoring from that line. But if they're going to play tight games, they can chip one in every once in a while. And the same goes for the fourth line, who did in game one against the Sabres.
Yeah,
Um, saw some comments kind of going both ways on this line. Where do you see them? It's only 2 games in. Um, it's no secret who they are. They know each other. Um, Is this something that you think will last all season? Are you getting a sense that maybe Goche kind of draws in every once in a while to give one of them a break, or is it just go, 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 and that's just what they do?
No, I think it's the latter. Go, go, go. That's what they do. I don't think that Gauthier is in the mix to replace any of those three, barring an injury. I think Gauthier is in the mix to replace a Fashing or a Holmstrom, one of those guys who maybe isn't performing and needs a night off. Um, I got to say, I was surprised to not see Gauthier start the first two games. Played really strong. I know they signed Fashing to that 2-year contract. Holmstrom has built some chemistry with Barzell and Horvat, so I could understand it. But I was definitely surprised. I had kind of thought for a second there that he had a leg up on Fashing, but you know, to answer your first question in regard to the fourth line, um, yeah, I don't see. This might be their last kick at the can. So I think that they're, unless their limbs are falling off, they're not stepping off that ice. Um, I think they'll be just fine.
Is this, are the coaching staff and Lamorello just are? Was there? Do you think there's an understanding between that line? Hey, you're gonna go until there's one of you is injured or whatever the case is, and
Yep.
this is a little bit of the last dance situation here. We're not going to
Yeah.
take you out unless you can't go.
Yeah, I could see that, right? Because, again, just looking at the contracts here, it's the last year for Martin. It's the last year for Clutterbuck. The only guy who's going to remain is Casey Zizekas. Now, are they going to, extend these guys? I listen. I've said no in the past. Obviously, I was wrong, but I'd be shocked. I mean, Martin's 34, Clutterbuck's 35. Clutterbuck's being held together by gum and paper clips. Matt Martin, look, I've said this before. He just finds a way to come through when the Islanders need it. He does that. He provides the physicality. He's a little bit of an energizer bunny for the rest of the team when he has those shifts with Zizekas and Clutterbuck where it gets UBS Arena going and gets the guys on the bench going. But you know how long do you want to commit to a guy like that? And if you ask Lamorello, he'll say 35 isn't old. I'm 81. I get that. We'll see if he's even in charge next year because, again, there's that speculation as to when he's going to retire and who might step in. But I think that, there's some circumstances that revolve around the future for them. Where are they at? Where's the GM at? And what's the outcome of this season? What does that look like? So I personally think this is their last kick of the can. So I don't see them coming in and out of the lineup. But I do think there is, that even if it's unspoken agreement between everyone, like, look, if this is it, we're going out our way. So
I can't find a way to disagree with that other than, if the team isn't playing well and they need a boost, it's easier, especially if it's not the rest of the lineup. I think Fashing was always going to be in there. That really, he was going to lose that spot more than Gauthier was going to gain access to it. So Gauthier could have scored 5 goals every single game in the preseason. It really did not matter. Fashing was going to go into this regular season on that line and not play well and lose it if that was what was going to happen. And he hasn't so far.
yeah,
Interesting. It could be that Holmstrom is replaced there, and I would kind of be happy to see it just because it's a lot of speed adding him. Something that Barzell said during the preseason when they played together, that Gauthier brings a lot of extra speed to that line. It wouldn't be a bad thing, but yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately Wallstrom is also in that spot, um, being the extra and trying to find a way to come in. Gauthier is a little bit more of a kind of fit anywhere in your lineup type player. So I would like to see if the Islanders are really going to make the playoffs, that fourth line needs to not be hurt. And I wouldn't mind every once in a while Gauthier kind of rotating in for either Clutterbuck or Martin just to, just to get them a little bit of a break. And if the gum wears off or the paperclip is bending a little bit for Clutterbuck or whatever the case is, Martin just hit his 900th career game the other night against the Coyotes. Just give him a break. I understand your last kick and you want to go out your way, but if you're going to go out your way, it would be a lot better if you were healthy for the playoffs. And if it's looking that way late in the season, give him a break, especially if it's not going to be anything that is significant. They're in a good position come playoff time. Give him a break. It doesn't need to be that way. You don't need to just hold on sake. Don't do like this Phil Kessel, Keith Yandel thing. It's not games played. You don't have an Iron Man streak. Do what's best for the team. Hopefully everyone kind of that conversation there. But I can understand both sides. It's going to be upsetting, kind of like a Josh Bailey thing when that line isn't together, but we'll get there maybe one day. We don't have to do that.
I did definitely think to myself, when I realized 900 games for, Martin was approaching, is it possible? Does he get to 1,000? But I'm not sure he has that much left in the tank. I mean, he is 34. Players could play till they're 40 if they have that, if they have that in them, if their training is good, their diet is good, and they're healthy. But I'm not sure he gets to 1,000. I don't know if he has 100 more games in the NHL left in him. I mean, if he plays the rest of this season, for every game, he's almost 9/10 of the way there.
Yeah, it could be a mix of that, and he could be 13th, 14th forward next season. Clutterbuck seems to be the one worse for wear out of the two of them. So it wouldn't surprise me if Martin kind of came back now that Johnston isn't around and draws in occasionally. There's some off-season things they got to figure out after this year and moving some money around. But we're 2 games into this year. We won't jump too far. We still have the defense to get through, which might be a little bit quicker. I think the main thing was the Mayfield injury, but before we get to that, the pairings were against the Coyotes anyway. Pelech, Dobson, Romanov, Pulak, Bolduc, Aho. What do you think overall of the defense, and are there any pairs that kind of stuck out to you? I know some people had some comments about Dobson's play through the first 2 games.
Yeah, Dobson had good moments and had bad moments. Pelech looked like his usual self. I think Pulock's been pretty strong this year. I like what I'm seeing from him. Good on both ends of the ice. We knew he was, he had seasons where he was good one year in the offensive zone, scoring 10 goals, 45 points, which was great. And, another year where he was more a defensive guy and playing with Pelech and more of a shutdown role. But I think he's looked real good on both ends of the ice. Maybe he's found, that middle ground this year, which would be great. Mayfield didn't play enough for me to really be able to know. Played 1 game. It was fine. But didn't really stand out in any sort of way. The one guy, and I mentioned this earlier, that stood out to me the most was Sebastian Aho. I mean, 5 shots in his first game, play driving, making really smart plays in all 3 zones. There was definitely one shift where in the defensive zone 2, he won a puck battle along the boards, but was surrounded by a number of Coyotes. And, instead of making a quick decision and trying to just get rid of the puck, he displayed good patience. He, made the Coyote player believe he was going one way with the puck and went the other and skated the puck away from danger. So we've seen this from him. He shows flashes of being really good. And then he has those games where you just want to rip your hair out of your head and you say, what the hell was he doing all game for 15 minutes on this night? And look, what is he, 28 at this point? I mean, he's getting up there, 27, 28.
Aho,
27. So he's 27. Still young. Is he going to break out per se? Maybe not. But if he can at least just be reliable, be sixth or fifth, sixth guy like Thomas Hickey was for so long. That's something that the Islanders could use. They need the depth on the blue line. They There's a lot of question marks there, especially with Mayfield hurt now. Bolduc, is he ready? We don't know. If Aho could just be reliable, it's a big win.
Yeah, I think you're right about Aho, and he definitely needs to just find some consistency, and again, almost not be noticeable. Do some good things, be the offensive player that we know that he can be. Get pucks out in a clean way. Um, that play, I think I know exactly what you're talking about with Aho, is right out of the Adam Pelech book of kind of shiftiness and getting that puck out of your own zone. He's very good with his feet and positioning his body to kind of make it look like he's going a different way. Um, and that I think I know what the player that you're talking about. Um, with Bolduc, I think he was again he wasn't noticeable, and I think that's good. I really didn't. I was trying to keep an eye out for him. I think they protected him a little bit. I don't think he got a ton of ice time, even against the Coyotes, which might tell you something given really kind of who they are, even this season with all the additions that you mentioned earlier. But it was a tight game, so some good reasons to kind of keep him off the ice and keep him a little bit sheltered. Um, but Pelech and Pulak were out there together a little bit, I think, in between shifts. You saw them be able to move that puck around so smoothly. I don't mind at this point they're split up. The pairings, I think Dobson and Pelech is really good. If Pelech's definitely has a little bit more of an offensive flair than I think people give him credit for. See his All-Star game goal and a couple other things leading up to that moment. Um, and I think it's good for Dobson to have that rock there. I heard I missed some of the Buffalo game, but I saw that people were disappointed, and he's just an offensive player. And I saw a little bit, got an assist, a primary assist in the power play goal from Barzell against the Coyotes, but you need him to kind of, it's either he is what he is or this team is really good defensively, and it's a thin line, right? You want him to score more goals, and then people are going to point out that you're essentially your star defender isn't great at defense. So there's a part of me that we need to pick one as fan base. Either help him, Aho and Dobson, all right, push the pace, yada yada. Or they're going to be a good defensive team. It's
I
tough.
see this a lot with, and I'm not saying this is who he is, but I see this a lot with Eric Carlson. Oh, well, he's really bad in the defensive zone. Like, well, he scored you 100 points last year, so you give and you get. So it's give and take with Dobson. Maybe he's just a really good offensive defenseman. Maybe he's not the best defender, but if he's scoring you 50 points like he did 2 years in a row from the blue line, who else is doing that on this team?
Yeah, there are times when he just looks like a forward in the defensive zone. The way that he's going right towards the puck, there was one play in particular. I think it was on a goal against a goal against that the Sabres scored, and Dobson's just going behind the net. There's already a guy there. You pick up somebody in the slot. The puck's there. Um, you got to find out where it's going next, and it comes out and right to that player, and Dobson should have had it, and it went right through his, I think, right through his legs, right over his stick, and you have to play that a little tighter. You kind of have to have your head on a swivel and see where's the threat coming from, where's the center, who is he picking up, and you can't have both defenders below the goal line like that, especially if there's just somebody kind of hanging out, one of the forwards. So you hope he kind of just figures that out a little bit, or does some Eric Carlson or Klingberg shit where he just scores you a ton of points and you can kind of overlook it. Until then, it's difficult. You're going to have those kind of comments hanging around. But by and large, I thought the defense was good, and obviously Sorokin already has a shutout. I saw a stat, I believe, as Rosner said, Sorokin's essentially good for a shutout, one shutout every 8 games or 8 starts or something crazy like that. Already third all time on the Islanders list, if I'm not
Yeah, well,
mistaken.
that's what I was going to say. I mean, that was what was the surprise to me is that this is what his third full season with the Islanders, and he's already, you know, third or fourth all time. Yeah, third all time after DiPietro. No, sorry, he just skipped over DiPietro for most career shutouts in franchise history. Chico Resch has 25, Billy Smith has 22, and Sorokin has 17. And I'll tell you what, he has the chance to leap Billy Smith even this year if he can do that. So
Yeah, and he's looked good after, preseason doesn't tell you a whole lot, but it's you hope it's not a sign of things to come, and he's erased that. He's definitely looked better in the first 2 games. After a shutout, I'm not worried about it. Didn't get a ton of work, and sometimes those are the hardest games when you're not getting a ton of work and you're cold and you're not moving around. Um, you've seen that before too, where it's a struggle when you're not getting the shots on net on your own end. So good to see that he's able to focus and kind of stay focused throughout the game, even with a low shot count, sub 20 shots against. So definitely not worried there.
for context here, DiPietro in 318 games had 16 shutouts. Sorokin in 138 games has 17 shutouts. So, I mean, that's, and people forget, like, we all like to joke about the DiPietro contract, but right before he was brittle and broken, dude was a all-world goaltender.
Yeah, it's so that's the part, when I see the contracts, that was a good I mean, it was long and maybe it would have been ridiculous and it wouldn't, whatever. But when it was signed, he was so good. There's a reason why he got that deal.
Yeah, man.
And he gets a really bad I can't wait till it's just over and everyone just stops talking about it. I think it's next season or it's a few more seasons where they're still paying DiPietro. It's freaking ridiculous. I know we're free from Yashin at this point. But yeah, that's a crazy one. I had something else that I was looking at that shutout list and I was surprised not to see Roland Melanson up there somewhere. Can you guess how many shutouts he had when he was with the Islanders from 1980 to 1985?
80 to 85 shutouts. I mean, shutouts were tough to come by at that point.
Billy Smith, that's the same era. They were the
That's a good point.
tandem.
It's a good point.
And people forget that too, that Melanson and Smith essentially split the regular season for those Stanley Cup years. And then Smith took it over in the playoffs.
I don't know. What was it? 7, 8?
1.
1?
I looked at it. I looked it up in real time because I'm like, how many?
Wow.
He was such a big part of it. He played a lot of games for the Islanders during that same period that Smith did. So I'm surprised his name isn't kind of high up on that list too. Yeah, he had 6 in his entire career. So
Wow.
he played for the
That's
Devils.
shocking to me.
Yeah, I played for the Devils for 1 game too in 1991. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew he went to the Kings and North Stars and stuff, but yeah, I was surprised not to see his name up there. It was a little weird. Yeah, so the Islanders play later this week, at least on Saturday. I don't have the schedule up in front of me. Do you know what their deal is the rest of the week?
I could pull it up right here on the NHL media site. Games. All right, so the Islanders play again on Friday. Oh, Friday. They play the Devils on
Back
Friday.
to back Devils and then Sabres.
Saturday, Sabres, and then they play Tuesday against the Avalanche, Thursday against the Senators, and Saturday. So Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week, and then the following Monday, Thursday, Saturday. So looks like we're on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, Thursday, Saturday rotation for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, for a little while. I'm super bummed I can't go to that game on Saturday in Buffalo. I'm right down Route 90 here, but I'll have to catch them a different time. Any last thoughts before we go into a few more games, and we'll try to figure out our schedule for next week to chat more Isles hockey.
No, just I'm just excited to see more Tank Barzal. I that's my biggest storyline for this year. I mean, Horvat is one, for the fact that it's his first full season. Excited to see what he has. Engvall's another. Sorokin for potential Vezina purposes. But I'm just excited for this full season of Tank Barzal. I think this is a big year for him.
Yeah, the re-breakout of Barzal. Needs to kind of come out of his shell. Part 2. So it'll be
he's about to reintroduce himself like Jay-Z.
I think that's a great comparison. That tells the story, I think, and a good way to end the show. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at Nestman Hockey. Definitely make sure you find us on Threads. You never know when the artist formerly known as Twitter is going to something. I'm not sure. Every day it seems like some new bullshit is happening. So who knows? There's a fee structure or anything like that. I don't think that we're going to stick around for that personally or for the podcast. So definitely try to find us on Threads in the meantime to keep up on things. You can find James' work at New Jersey Hockey Now, especially when they're playing the Islanders and at the fourth period. James, bring us home.
Until next time, all, let's go Islanders.